And welcome to PE572, Introduction to Sport Management. I want to talk a little bit about what sport is in general. As we enter this program and this topic, many things that you can see on slide 1. Sport is physical activity for leisure and pleasure. Entertainment is a very big component of sport when we talk about professional sport in particular, and all of the aspects that come with that, and of course the income that comes when you think of sport as entertainment. And then bundle of benefits in the core of the service and the extensions, and the consumer and industrial product component of sport are very big keys. Sport management is a multidisciplinary field that applies business and management to the principles of sport. And when we talk about business, sport is a multi-billion with a B dollar business, especially as we consider the United States in focus. Of course, worldwide, the numbers grow drastically as each region of the world has its own particular niche in sport management. We're going to focus a lot on U.S. sport in this course, and as we move into that will be referencing our text along with some other key pieces. Defining sport and sport management, we talk about what is sport. Are we talking about sports, plural, playing games? Is it a business? There are sport management pieces that we discuss within this course. And when we talk about sport management, we talk about running a business, which could mean running a team, managing a particular franchise, operating a building. We talk about sport marketing. We talk about ownership, coaching, athletic training. We talk about collegiate, professional, Olympic, community level, and also sport merchandise, fitness, and really the list goes on and on. But the management of sport is what we talk about in this course, and that's how you lead within this realm. And we talk about management versus administration. What is that difference? Administering sport, leading and directing, or management, where that is actual defining of business structure, finance, organizing departments, staff, all of the big pieces and structure, hierarchy, if you will, that make up a sport management component. And that can mean a lot of things. And we'll go into more detail, but this is a very general overview of what sport and sport management really is. Nature and scope of sport, of the sport industry, we have a lot of different sports, types of sports. There's a very diverse culture that are available for everyone to participate in. And we talk about consumer, a consumer of sport are people who participate, fans of a sport, merchandise purchaser, ticket buyers, all sorts of different ways to look at how you are involved in sport and the opportunities within. And you really have to have an understanding and in-depth knowledge of, traditional sport and new sport. When we talk about traditional sport for Americans, we talk about football, baseball, basketball. And some will argue NASCAR fits in there as well. And I've always had the idea that that never did fit in a 3-tier level of sport here in the United States until I really did a lot of research on the topic. And NASCAR, sport car racing, is a very big, large moneymaker in the United States. So when we look at tiers of sport, I do add in car and NASCAR style racing into a tiered level. So as we look at it as 4 tiers in that realm. And, football, baseball are traditional sports in the United States versus futsal and ag ball. And I encourage you to look up ag ball. Some of you may have recognized the term futsal, and that's a modified version of soccer-ish played in a different way. And it's fairly new within the last, 8 years or so. Here in the United States, you'll see futsal tournaments amongst our youth. on the beach, and different ways that it's coming onto the scene. And those are non-traditional sports, and you'll see that happening, but it also lets you see sport is very broad. The types of sports are not what you would normally think of, and sport is a very, very broad term. Slide 5. And then as we look at careers in sport management, some focus on very obvious pieces of the sport industry, but there are some that are not so obvious that are definitely part of the sport management world. We talk about athletic directors. That's something that's very common. Stadium management, sport marketing agencies, player agents, college sport administrators, sport broadcasting, recreation management, youth and community sport, sporting good manufacturer, managing a professional sport leagues. Those are all ideas, and the list goes on and on. We talk about Olympic level, collegiate, not just sport administrators, but coaching, athletic directing, all those pieces and facets go into the industry, and managing behind the scenes. And as we look at these examples, your mind probably spins as to what it is that you could possibly step into. And again, the list is endless. These are just a few examples of careers that you can aspire to do. And it doesn't stop here. Please use your imagination as you continue to research and find ways to fulfill your dream in a career in sport management. And loving sport is simply just not enough to really be successful in the industry. You got to have a passion for the business side of things. When I have transitioned out of being an athlete and into the management world, you no longer become a fan when you sit in the stands. You're really analyzing different pieces of the game, the evening, the surrounding event, the management around you, the staffing, player personnel. You really find a different way of viewing a sport game when you get into a career and behind the scenes. And it's not about being a fan. You really have to understand and want to get into the business side of sport. Now, don't get me wrong. It does start out with a fan base. If you don't have a passion, and if you're not a fan of sport, you're never going to be interested in getting a career in sport. So it does play hand in hand for a little bit. But then the term fan ends at some point because you have to look at things through a management lens. It is a very competitive industry. You really need to know that going out of college into the sporting world on the management side, everybody wants to do that. So there are a limited amount of jobs versus how many people are applying for those positions. So competition is fierce, and you really want to put yourself out there head and shoulders above your competition. And networking is critical. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. And that means making sure you're contacting folks, staying in touch with people who might better assist you down the line in the sport world, and staying in touch, collecting business cards, handing a business card out, which is critical. I tell all of my students to please get business cards made online. Vistaprint is a very easy way to do that. And I can easily show you how to create your business card as a student so it's effective for you. But you want to be able to stay in touch with people whom you meet along the way. There's nothing worse than meeting a sport industry professional, having a conversation, and walking away with no information of how to stay in touch or keep in touch. And they'll never remember your name unless you exchange conversation and try to maintain a connection. That's key. Low turnovers and lots of recycling occur in the sport industry when people get into career-minded settings where they've been in their spot and or an organization for 15, 20, 25 years. You realize those folks are planted and they're not going anywhere. So turnover is low, and you do have to find your way up the ladder just like they did. And sometimes lateral moves are important. If you find opportunities within an organization laterally, that's a chance for you to move in a different direction, but stay and maintain your base within a sport focus. And jobs are not always glamorous. People work very tirelessly within the sport industry, and anybody you ask, they don't keep regular hours. It's not 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. It ranges, it varies, especially on the event side. As you can imagine, events happen on weekends and in the evenings and on holidays. And you have to have a passion to go into work and to do a great job, even when it's oddball hours. And you really have to start at the bottom, pay your dues. Salaries are lower level, and because there's a lot of people who are wanting to get those types of jobs. So if you have a passion to get in the industry, it's not about the money, and it really never should be, because your passion should drive your behavior in the workforce. There's a lot of resources when we talk about management. We have human resources, financial resources, physical resources, informational resources that help a management team function within their realm. And managers are really responsible for achieving objectives in the best way possible, utilizing their skill set, their education, their people skills, and their team around them to help them really get to where they need to be. And every good manager is only as good as the team supporting them. And when you surround yourself with really great people and you staff yourself with wonderful assets, you'd be amazed at how successful that manager is and how well respected he or she is amongst the peers and people that work for him or her. Integrity, integrity, integrity is key in management in sport. You want to stand by your word, and you want your word to speak for itself. Character and integrity go hand in hand, and there's that old saying, do the right thing even when no one is watching. That's the core of integrity. Being industrious, you have to be able to go after it, self-motivation, and getting along with people is really important. That's when you build your team around you, and again, the support you have as a manager depends on the people you have surrounding you and supporting you through the process. Technical skills are important, need to be up on technology. People skills are critically important, and it's highlighted because if you're not great with people and you can't lead people, you won't do well in the sport industry, because sport isn't about an individual. It's about consumers, people who purchase tickets, fans, management, staffing, HR, budgets, a lot of different components that have to deal with other people. And communication amongst that is very important. And along those lines, skill sets when it comes to decision making are important, because you will have the bottom line. The buck stops with you on the management level, and you want to do the right thing and make good choices and making great decisions for the team surrounding you. Functions of a manager are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling and evaluating. Everything works together as a system function. When one thing is out of play, you really see a shift and things really don't work well. You'll see, as everybody leads differently, all four of these functions are really key in the overall success. Really sound management principles are a big, big focus. That comes with maturity. That also comes with years of experience and the been there, done that type of attitude, where you don't want to make mistakes that you've made in the past, and or observing other people who possibly have made mistakes that you've learned from. Strategic response to consumer behavior. When you see something that is going awry, you need to be able to react, respond, and fix it. Strategic promotions and making sure things are moving smoothly and forward. Strategic sales and techniques, integrated marketing management, economic and financial principles, legal and ethical issues, sociological dynamics, facility and event management principles. All those pieces get talked about in other courses and a little bit in better detail throughout this course. And those are overviews of what a manager has to have under their belt, really, as they move into a management world. And creativity is thinking outside the box. How would you fix something that's not working that may not be a very direct solution in front of you? What else would work? And being able to think through it and apply it and fix it. You'll see there pictures of Beijing, China, and the Olympics. One is the Aqua Dome, which is the blue square, and one is the bird's nest. These two visions of the Olympics, Olympic buildings, really showcase a lot about the world of sport. In Beijing, China, they broke records on how much money was spent to produce their buildings, the Olympics in general. This was a well off the charts, record-breaking Olympics when it came to financial planning and really income, revenue. The financial burden of this Olympic Games is noteworthy. And really, no one would have thought that the future from this Olympic Games would really showcase other Olympic venues in creating something similar or to live up to. And certainly Beijing has done that. So you really need to create your future by doing it. Successful sport managers facilitate and deliver the sport exchange with a no-limit mindset. Impossible is only temporary. Here goes back to the theory of thinking out of the box and really finding solutions, because impossible is not an option. Slide 14. We talk about marketing principles within this course, financial and economic principles, legal and ethical principles, facility management principles, event management principles. These pieces you'll find throughout the course of the sport management program at APU, and each piece is very significant in the success of sport management in general. And with all of these components and pieces, they are very helpful in understanding a little bit about a lot of things. The roles that managers play in the sport industry are interpersonal roles. Those are the figurehead positions, leaders, and liaison between organizations and different people. Informational roles, you monitor, disseminate, and you're the spokesperson for many different pieces. And you're a decision maker. You really negotiate a lot, and you do the best work for your franchise or your organization. Top, middle, and first line, strategic, tactical, and operational management are really three management levels that we can put into categories. A lot of people, strategic management are your upper level executives who overview and do big pictures and really allocate out to the middle person, which is your tactical management team, and they implement amongst their first line management. First line management implement a lot of the thought processes and the pieces that really make a successful franchise. And then we talk about types of managers, your general, functional, and project managers. And you've heard these terms before. Project manager is a very well-known term. And your functional managers are those that are really the operational people. And your GMs, your general management teams, are those in the overview positions. Management types. We call this the chaos theory because really you need to be quick and move with constant adaptation, but be a problem solver and a solution maker. And reactive managers make changes only when forced to. They're reacting to a problem or situation. Responsive is you're proactively trying to avoid issues. And then your interactives really are those who are acting in the moment. And they're seeing how they can help affect an organization by their doing their part and really inventing ways to make things better. We talk about ethics in sport. Recognizing issues within the ethical side is your first approach. Getting the facts, evaluating, making a decision, and then reflect on the outcome. When we talk about ethics in sport, the biggest key is avoiding speculation. Speculation and secondhand information doesn't do anybody good. So as a manager, you have to avoid the drama of getting put into speculation and unfactual things. Getting the facts as a manager is your very, very first approach to that. And understanding how you can fix things and how you can guide, lead, and coach through those once they're discovered. Being an ethical manager is probably one of the most important things you can ever strive to be, because your word and your character are on the line. And you can never fix that once it's tarnished. So you do want to make sure that your character speaks for itself. When we talk about critical thinking skills, being a critical thinker is important, assertive through that. And it's not really just thinking about things. It's really about analyzing data, getting the facts, and thinking through a process and finding a solution and a goal. And that's key amongst all management focuses. In sport, I think it's a very fine art and something that we all strive to do better at. And as we continue to look at critical thinking skills, being aware of critical questions that are asked of you, maybe of your bosses and your management team above you, answering those appropriately, and really as a guide to behavior when you're working with staff members and understanding how staff members function, how you can be a better supportive boss, and how you can help finding a solution by utilizing your critical thinking skills. Management of sport, a service-oriented perspective. We talk about service in sport management because it is a big component of how sport succeeds. Consumer market supplies the revenue for sport arenas, as we see here on this slide: Staples Center, Honda Center, Anaheim Convention Center, hockey, that's the Ducks. There are a lot of other arenas that we can discuss and talk about, but they're all consumer-based. Without a consumer purchasing and merchandising, these sport venues don't exist. And so how do we get service-oriented perspective and do the best that we can to continue to retain consumer bases? Marketing strategies help a lot with that. Bringing in the right staff, professionalism within your organization, arenas particularly. One of the biggest myths in the sport industry is that sport managers wear jogging suits and sneakers and t-shirts to work every day. And nothing could be further from the truth. When I was in the sport industry actively working on the professional sports side, it was business suits. For women, it was slacks and skirts, and we were very professionally dressed for all events. Rarely were we in casual clothes because we're representing a brand. No matter what that brand is, if you're working for a franchise, sport marketing company, representing a university, an Olympic athlete, a community sport organization, a city government position, you'll notice, and if you pay attention, they're in professional attire and professional dress because it's their image that is selling their product. And they really have a commitment to service quality in every aspect. It's key. We're not there to play sport. We're not there to kick a ball around. We're there to grab consumers and to retain consumers for the success of our business, whatever that may be. When we talk about superior customer service, it's about retention. And we overall looking at budgets is how do you bring in more revenue and reduce costs? That's a constant battle each and every year as budget streams come through, as new budgets are being developed and looked at. Revenue streams at times go down, but costs rise. And word of mouth is big. You want word of mouth to spread. When there's something good going on, people are going to jump on board. And then that overall increases your profitability because everybody's looking at growth. When you look at a downward spin, that's when organizations get in trouble. Everybody wants to see growth. Growth is key. Expansion. Those types of terms you'll hear throughout these courses when we talk with executives and other people about potential for growth. What has the growth been? Where have they seen the potential for expanding within their organization? Managing change. Life is always changing. Change is a fact of business and a fact of life in general. Yogi Berra's quote, "The future ain't what it used to be," always makes me smile because it's so profound. Long-term success depends on ability to manage change. And as we talk about change agents, we talk about change is occurring every day in everything that we do. And there is a common thread that you'll hear often from people that says, you're never okay with status quo. You're never okay with being stagnant. And that's refreshing because as managers, you always want to be better. You want to find areas of improvement, make correction so that you can get excellent. Good is great and excellent is better. And those are things to strive for. With change agents, a lot of things can happen negatively and or positively. In 2008, there was a dynamic shift in the culture of our country in general with economics and finance and the housing market, and the banking industry went sour and things started to decline. In 2008 is when we noticed a lot of change agents occur within the sport industry in particular. It's the environmental forces, the economic forces, producing social forces, demographic forces change and shift at times. Technological forces are very different as each year goes by. Technology gets different, better, and we need to be able to keep up with that. And then changes in management functions. Oftentimes things are blended. Different duties are absorbed by other managers. And you'll see that shift happening in a few years. You'll check in with an organization and find that things have shifted quite a bit. Different people organize different things and change has occurred. And change is good. It's not anything to be afraid of, but we do have to be able to roll with the punches. Traditional sport really focuses on young Caucasian, able-bodied, heterosexual male market of consumers. And as bold as that statement is, we still live in a sport industry where we're seeing traditional sport look like that. There are a lot of breakaways from that, but still that remains the core of the sport industry as we see it today. There's a sociocultural climate that a lot of times was not very inviting if you weren't considered part of that mainstream. But managers begin to kind of create their own molds, and you'll see a lot of women embedded in the sport industry these days, high-level ranking women, people of color, different cultural, socioeconomic backgrounds emerging within management, and things are starting to shift over the last maybe 5 to 7 years, and that's all good, and those are big improvements that we see, and we're welcoming that change. When we talk about the different facets of diversity in sport, all of these things that you see on the slide, you'll maybe recognize, some you may not recognize, but they open the world of sport to opportunity for those of different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds. And it gives them a platform amongst their peers to be able to expand in the world of sport. 30 shows, we talked about Olympic Games in Rio, all sorts of different types of opportunity that culturally bring groups of people together, and that gives people just a chance to expand on their knowledge of sport and to participate. And this is the Bayou Classics, and this is a very well-known event that happens every year, and it's a showcase, and it is very well funded and a lot of revenue surrounding this showcase of events. Really talks about the Hispanic market and giving opportunity for those of Hispanic culture, particularly in soccer, to showcase their skill sets. As an example of Asian women in sport in general. Asian men, these are some examples of former players, and you'll see newer players as well, and they're making a mark in sport. Native American mascots shows the impact of the Native American culture, and there's a lot of controversy around these types of images and these types of marketing components around our Native American cultures here in the United States. This is an ever-changing idea. This thread has brought and sparked controversy amongst the Native American people and marketers and the sport world in general because of the revenue that's brought in and the tradition behind the names and the culture and the icons here. Talks about NASCAR, and I mentioned that in the beginning as we talked about the tiers of American sport. And NASCAR is amongst those high-level revenue tiers, and a lot of different things that NASCAR has done to promote their sport within the industry, and a lot of it with diversity programming. And they're striving to do a lot to expand to all levels and cultures. There's another example of NASCAR celebrating Black History Month and then Hispanic drivers and giving them a platform. Women as consumer of sport, and when we talk about Title IX being implemented in 1972 and giving women a platform to participate equally as men, it's been a struggle and challenge since 1972 to bring about the term of equality and what does that mean. And when we talk about women in sport and the consumer as a woman, we see particularly the NFL has done a lot of research on merchandising, and they've discovered that women are a high purchaser for NFL products. And you can see that women tend to have a very big impact as a consumer, whether it is purchasing tickets, merchandising, parking, concessions, all of those pieces that women influence in that area. And as we look at variables of change, we talked about change agents earlier, and there's really 4 variables of change in how we go about on management issues, and strategy, structure, technology, and people are 4 of our major keys when we look at how can we make a change in the sport industry when it comes to diversity in sport, sport marketing, general management of people and staff, consumers, all of the things we've discussed, and the variables of change and how to do that are 4 key components here. Stages in that process, how do you make it happen? First, there's that denial phase of it doesn't need to change. The resistance of it's too difficult, I can't do it. Exploration into solutions and possible detours or roadblocks that would come your way and how to overcome those. And then the commitment to make that change happen for the betterment of your organization and the management team. That all comes into play as a resolution. And in conclusion, sport really is an ever-changing field, as I've discussed earlier. Some key takeaways are to do your very best work when you're on the scene, especially if you're in an internship position. Your name really is your reputation. They will remember you, for good or for bad. And be alert of current events. I tell people all the time, if you have a 1-minute or 2-minute elevator speech, what would it be? A very quick introduction of who you are, your passion for the sport industry, and giving a business card, exchanging information, and a follow-through of a simple, I'd love to get in touch with you, and have coffee at some point are really important and good things to practice because you never know who you're going to meet in that elevator. Networking is key to success. Everybody you meet in the sport industry will reiterate this term over and over and over again. Networking, networking, networking. It's really not about who you know, it's who knows you. And that's how you land each and every step within the working world. It's who you know, and it's doing great work, but it's networking and making sure you're making connections with the right people. Don't ever burn bridges. You always want to be able to go back into an organization, say hello, and that organization may platform you into something else. And you want to have good standing and really have your name in good light when you're there. Don't burn bridges, especially when you leave. You want to leave on good terms. And most importantly, really have fun in your surroundings. You want to enjoy it. You want to have a great time. You want to be happy when you're at work because it shouldn't be work. If you enjoy the sport industry and you really love it and have a passion for it, it's not work. You enjoy having the opportunity to meet people and to be in that environment. So those are some key walkaways for you to consider. And I hope you enjoyed this lecture on Lecture 1, Managing Sport.